Hey, Coach.
As above, so below. We've heard this. Be ye in the world, but be ye not of the world. These are very lofty kinds of phrases that we might have heard. But maybe we have wondered, what does it really mean? What does it really mean? More particularly, what do these phrases mean in my life? How do I live them? And so to me, they mean bringing heavenly ideas, higher truths, deep and profound spiritual concepts that we learn here on Sundays and in our classes into our earthly, worldly experiences, with all the dust, with all the grime, with all the grit that might be covering them up, the true essence of who we are. So it's transmuting our thoughts into heavenly ones. And that's the definition I have for clearing, well, actually the real name of this talk, but I didn't put this out there, is clearing out hell so that heaven can reign. So we're going to work on clearing out those hell thoughts that we might be having and define what that actually means in our lives. So a youth church teacher was giving a lesson one Sunday to a group of school children. And when she asked them, if I sold my house and my car, had a big garage sale and gave away everything that I had, all the money to the church, would I go to heaven? And the children replied, no. How about if I cleaned the church every day, mowed the lawn, and kept everything neat and tidy? Would that get me into heaven? And again, the children replied, no. Well then, if I were really kind to animals and gave candy to all the children and helped the needy, would that get me into heaven? She asked again. And of course they replied, no. And so she continued, then how do I get into heaven? And little Johnny shouted out, you gotta be dead. Well, in religious science, New Thought, which is what we are here, we don't have to gotta be dead. Okay? We don't have to. In order to get into heaven, that's not what we believe. We don't believe it's a place. But we believe that in order to experience the kingdom of heaven, in order to do that, we gotta connect with that God presence within. There's so many ways that, I can remind myself, because I'm doing this with you all, I'm clearing out the hell thoughts too, but it is to constantly be clearing out these thoughts and to allow the God presence to shine. So we need to let some things die. Some things that don't serve us. Thoughts, situations. We need to let go of that which does not allow us then in consciousness to experience the kingdom of heaven, because where is that? Heaven is not in a situation, and it's not outside of us, it's within us. This is where we experience our own personal heaven or our own personal hell. It's within us each and every day. To experience the kingdom, remember, it's not necessarily the situation, but it's our thinking about the situation that causes those hell thoughts. And it keeps us out of that beautiful kingdom of peace. Within. It's within. Everything is within. So Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, religious science, wrote, behold, the kingdom of heaven is at hand, but this kingdom must be recognized, and the recognition is a mental act. So we must release, truly, release from our being any of these limiting thoughts that, you hear the classes we're going to work through, and that's what we do. We work through, we chip away at releasing those beliefs and that mind chatter that keeps us stuck in situations that we say, enough, I don't want to do it anymore. So sometimes these things, we let them, if we consistently go within, we can let them just lie by the roadside and just let them to die, because they no longer serve us as we're moving in our vibration to a higher frequency. So we need to clear out of hell so that heaven can reign. That's what I'm saying. And I'm working on it too. So I want to talk this morning about 2 ways we might experience the hell of separation. Because that's what it is. We think we're separate from God. We're not. From the source of all love, all joy. 2 blocks that, were we to chisel them away and clear them out, heaven could reign more freely in our lives. And the 2 blocks that we're going to talk about today, then, are fear and blame. Maybe you don't experience fear or blame. So first we'll talk about that old good one, fear. It's been said, and truly, there are only 2 real emotions, fear or love. And then everything else is branched off from those 2 reigning emotions. It's either fear-based or it is love-based, okay? So Marianne Williamson, which Veronica just read from, wrote in another book, love in your mind produces love in your life. This is the meaning of heaven. Fear in your mind produces fear in your life. This is the meaning of hell. So it's been said that we can't let fear run our lives, because if we do, we don't really live. Do we live fully? No, we get stagnated. We're held back from fully expressing our true selves, who we really are. If you are letting fear run your life, you certainly are not creating heaven, because it doesn't feel like heaven, does it? No, it doesn't. So this morning I ask you, how is fear preventing you from living? How is fear preventing you from creating heaven on earth? Right here, right now. How is fear doing that? What is it that is fear-based? Not being safe in the world? Worrying that we don't have enough? Afraid to connect with others? Afraid to let love in? Afraid to speak our truth? Afraid to let our light shine? Because we all have one, in case you forgot. We all have a light. So are we afraid? It goes on. And it really comes down to, am I worthy enough? It will always come back to, am I worthy enough to receive this heaven on earth that I can live? So I say, isn't it time to clear out, no matter what it is, so that heaven can reign, so that peace can be back again in our hearts, enthusiasm and joy, a part of our everyday experience? It's all about choice. A little child was lost in the woods for several days. And eventually a man found this child sitting under a tree and asked the child, weren't you afraid? And the child replied, I wasn't afraid because I know God is here. How do you know that? Replied the man who found her. And she said, because I am here. How can you know that God is here unless you're here? If you're sitting in these chairs, you have a life within you. And I am posing to you that this life, this true life, which is eternal, which does not die, is your divinity, the true essence of who you are. And so how about the statement then, when we get into fear about anything? I know that God is here because I am here. I know that God is here simply because I am here. God can't express but through you. Right? Do we get that?
Yep.
So I'm saying, let's release the fear. Let's work on releasing the fear and living life. Let's try it on for size. So to try it on for size, I'm going to have you just close your eyes for a moment, just a moment, and think about a fear that might be holding you back. And look it in the eye and say, I know that God is here because I am here. So I release fear and live. Really live. Okay, congratulations. You've just worked a little bit on chipping away. You can do that in the privacy of your own mind and your own time. You can work on that within yourself, releasing that fear, chipping away at it gently, lovingly, Because self-love is very important. Sometimes we get into the spirituality and we're even hard on ourselves in the spirituality, which is all about love. So it's being kind to who we are also. And so we have a second block, and that could be the blame game, as it's called in Radical Forgiveness, which is a phenomenal class which begins Tuesday, and it's almost full. Rev Patty Augustino will be teaching that, and it's really working on releasing, chipping away at those fear-based thoughts, the resentment, blaming others, blaming ourselves to keep us from being in the flow of life. George Bernard Shaw once said, "Liberty means responsibility, and that is why most men dread it so." Responsibility. Instead of blaming others, right? Our blaming ourselves is taking true responsibility. Taking responsibility for everything. We sometimes blame our surroundings. We blame the circumstances, or we blame other people for everything that's going on in our lives. When we blame, we become a victim. And we're trying to step out of that victim consciousness. And by taking responsibility, we are then empowering ourselves. We're empowering ourselves. Whenever we look to the outside to point a finger and say the problem is his or hers, if they would only change, if this would only happen this way, we're shooting at the wrong target. Too often we try to change the outer things instead of changing the inner part of who we are. So I'm going to use this little analogy, and I'm in no way a proponent of shooting, so it's a little story about when the movies first came around. They came first into the big cities, and then they went into the small towns. Well, finally, in a remote mining camp in the Rockies, the picture was announced. The tent was put up. It's the first time these people, the residents, had ever seen a movie. So this tent was packed with cowboys and coal miners. And at any given moment during the showing of this melodrama, a very strong melodrama, the villain began to choke the heroine. And a cowboy in the front row, sitting there in the audience, he fired 6 shots at the screen. And everyone in the movie theater, then we're no strangers to gunshots, although it's not something that we do today, but it's a metaphor, it's an example. Everybody laughed because he was shooting at an illusion. He was not turning his direction to taking the reel out of the projector, which would have then changed the entire movie and scenario. So what I'm saying is, for us then, with that kind of movie screen and projector image, we got to go within. Because within is where we change. Not on the outside, not on the movie that's showing in life. That's the circumstances. When we change the movie we're showing, ideas and stories we're telling ourselves, we change the whole scenario of the movie on the screen of our lives. So we start to change our consciousness, which is our awareness, our very being. And when we do that, then we do shift into a much higher place of being. And we're not blaming others, remember that. Because history is filled with examples of people who created a slice of heaven right here when they lived, and taking responsibility instead of blaming others, and connecting with their inner source rather than blaming their circumstances. And here are just a few that I thought were really interesting, okay? So a man named Muhammad was an illiterate caravan guide. Yet one night in a cave, rather than letting his lowly stature in life stop him, he founded a great culture and established the Islam religion, which, despite all the bad press it might have, there are over 200 million people practicing this religion today. And it's a beautiful, kind religion at its essence. A man named William Shakespeare, with only a grammar school education, wrote some of his greatest plays. And did he let his lack of education stop him from writing these great plays? Absolutely not. Because he took responsibility for the divine flow of creativity to express through him. Through him and as him. A man named Mozart, it's another one, right? Began to compose music when he was 5 years old. And although he lived a hard life and never really received recognition for his work while he was alive, he was a genius. He wrote so many unsurpassed pieces that it takes a catalog just to name the titles of what he wrote. Where did the music flow from? It didn't flow from out here. It flowed from within. Within. Thomas Edison was deaf and tossed out of public school after 3 months of education. And the teachers said it was impossible for him to learn. Yet he was responsible for changing the whole way of life that we are living through his inventions. Did he retreat and blame his public school teacher for this failure? For not nurturing him and guiding him? Of course not. Of course not. He simply drew from the creative genius which was inside of him. Moses, a shy man with no self-confidence and a speech impediment, inspired an entire nation to freedom. Did he blame his parents for not instilling self-confidence in him? And his genetics for giving him a speech impediment? No, he did what God called him to do. And a man named Jesus, a simple carpenter's son, living in an obscure village in an obscure province, went against the grain of all the popular religions of his time. And he changed the course of human events. Did he blame others? Not even those that killed him. No, he did not. Well, you might say these are geniuses. These are the exception, right? These are the prophets, the chosen few. But the greatest of them promised these things and more you can do. Amen. These things and more you can do. But you need to really connect with that inner genius and let it take off. Let it pull you into a greater expression of who you really, truly are. All these people that I talked about had the power that we all have. All of us. And each and every one of them chose to take responsibility for what was in their lives. And rather than lay blame, move forward and use their God-given talents. So this morning, I ask you, where are you allowing yourself, if you are, you might not be, to blame? Where are you allowing blame to block your flow of life? Because when you're blaming others, you're blocking your good. Think about that. Because when you block it, you're blocking heaven from expressing here on earth. How is blame holding you back? I want to pose these questions to yourself. Now is the time to start releasing blame. And as I said, it could be for others, for circumstances, or for our own, blaming ourselves. Let it go. To take full and total responsibility for our experience right here on earth, to create our own heaven right here on earth. We are capable of living in either heaven or hell. What lies, and we can do this because what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Amen. Amen. Amen to that. Amen. So creating heaven on earth takes a radical commitment to a different way of being, a different way of showing up. A mental response to life that may be at odds with the way that you might be showing up or had been showing up. Different way of looking at it, different way. It takes releasing fear and blame once and for all. Releasing fear and blame. And when it comes up, neutralize it with a spiritual truth. You know them, you've been taught them. Fear comes up, just go to love, just go to peace, just go to know that God is the source of all your good. No one, no thing else. That is the truth. And Ernest Holmes, in one of his very last talks, and it's called Sermon on the Mount, it was renamed, but in one of his very last talks, he said, "You find me 1,000 people in the world who know what religious science is, and use it, and live it as it is, and I myself will live to see a new world, a new heaven, and a new earth right here." He didn't quite make it. He died in 1960. But Ernest Holmes is gone just from this life experience. He's not gone. He's alive within our teachings here and many places all over this planet. So it's never too late to start. And the only place that we can start to truly build heaven on earth is right here, right now. So let's begin today. So it is.